Welcome back, Ag-tastic listeners, and thank you for joining me for another episode of Ag-celerate with Kropin, where we continue to dive into topics that are at the core of how the agriculture industry can thoughtfully accelerate digital transformation to deliver impact today and as we build for the future. My name is Sujit Janardhanan, and I lead marketing at Kropin. The industry's current headwinds are clearly driving the need to accelerate the digitalization of agriculture. Given the current challenges and the milestones to achieve, we must enable data-driven agriculture at the core. While for some, it is about adopting innovative farm management methods, and for others, it's about dealing with legacy systems and processes, but time is of the essence. And the key is understanding how we can connect different nodes of agriculture. Connected agriculture is also implying bringing together various stakeholders in the ecosystem through information and seamless communication. In this episode, we will talk about Digitalization 101 as we try to demystify the myths around the digitalization of agriculture. And to do so, I'm today joined by Marco Brini, who in his latest ebook, Easy Introduction to Digital Agriculture, provides a very comprehensive overview of the use of technology in agriculture, including topics such as precision farming, data management, and precision livestock farming. His ebook aims to make digital agriculture accessible to a broader audience by providing a clear and concise introduction. And we will make this ebook available as part of a communication follow-up to all the registered participants to this particular episode. Now, quickly introducing Marco. Marco has over 2 decades of experience leveraging digital innovations to benefit the agriculture industry. With a math degree and MBA, Marco, before focusing on digital agriculture, successfully worked with his teams to develop and bring to market several new technologies and products in the fields of environmental monitoring and risk mitigation, specifically focusing on the Internet of Things, advanced sensors, big data, predictive analytics, AI. All of that matters today in the agriculture space on how they are all converging to add value and solve some of the most complex challenges that the sector faces. He also co-founded 3 companies, receiving much international recognition. Welcome, Marco. It's a pleasure to have you join me in this episode.
Thank you, Sujit. My pleasure.
Awesome. And before we start busting myths, Marco, I want to quickly ensure that we are able to demystify one of the myths, which is the differentiation between digitalization and digitization. There is this common misconception across industries that they both mean the same. So let's get this straight. Digitization is more the process of converting information from a physical format into a digital one. In the agriculture context, it is about collecting and logging data from the field or on-ground activities, for example. Whereas digitalization refers to the broader adoption and integration of digital technology into all aspects of society, business, and culture. For example, the digitalization of agriculture describes integrating cutting-edge digital technologies into the farm production system, including artificial intelligence, robotics, sensors, and communication networks. Now, moving on to the more pressing issues and questions that we intend to try and cover in this episode that stakeholders in the agriculture ecosystem are trying to really address as we all push for more digitalization in this sector. Let's start with how critical is digitalization for agriculture and whether it is really the magic wand that can solve all its minutiae. My real reason for asking this question, which is almost rhetoric, is that the frontline stakeholder in this ecosystem is the grower or farmer. And they don't seem to be able to unlock value for themselves. As per the May 2022 Global Farmers Insights Survey results of McKinsey, even in technology-savvy and mature markets like North America and Europe, which largely constitutes of large holder farmer patterns, growers are citing high costs, which is almost 52% of the respondents, and unclear ROI, which was almost 40% of the respondents, as the biggest challenge is to continue adopting farm management system, which is considered as the basic layer of digitalization or the starting point for digital transformation. And despite all the investments in the ag tech sector and large agribusinesses either building or buying and rolling out their digital solutions to enable and work with their grower ecosystems, there seems to be a gap that we all need to focus on solving better. Marco, what are your thoughts and what have you been seeing as far as this particular phenomenon is concerned? Is it for real? Can we really solve problem statements that growers and farmers need help with solving using AgTech, or there are other pieces that we're missing?
We do. Well, I believe that digital technology is a combination of several tools that can deliver value. And before really engaging into digital agriculture, I've been hands-on proving that to myself, and to the farmers I've been working with. In 2012-13, we started a large project in Switzerland aiming just to prove that Nestlé and Syngenta and the Swiss Research Institution and CSEM, in order to challenge digital agriculture and challenge from the return on investment point of view, from the productivity point of view, from the saving. And we'd be proving that production can be increased up to 600% and water consumption reduced by 50% in cocoa production in Brazil. And in Switzerland, we've been proving that we could save up to 30% of pesticide while mitigating equivalently the risk of pests and diseases. So it was already several years ago, and with these results in the hands, they continue to be more and more passionate about digital agriculture, not as a magic stick. It is not a magic stick, and everyone who's considered that and is not doing good, neither to the farmer nor to the sector. These are just tools, and they need to be used with a wise approach, keeping in mind the interest of the farmer, helping the farmer to have better results, reducing cost and increasing the production and the profits, actually, in order to have a sustainable food system. So this is actually working. There are several more and more use cases like the one I mentioned that are proving that the return on investment is possible. And when I'm talking return on investment, I mean the farmer is investing time and money for a new digital solution to be implemented. And then the farmer wants to have back this money through an increase in productivity, and then starting to make money. Otherwise, why did it even consider to adopt that? So that is the key, in my opinion, return on investment on the technology which is installed. If we keep in mind always, constantly, that as a parameter, then we'll really talk really digital agriculture. Then we'll really consider those as tools, and we could discriminate, because some tool may not be mature enough. Other tools are really mature to be installed and integrated into the farm. Not all the tools will be equivalently useful for all farmers. Farming is highly differentiated geographically, by size, by crop type. So you need to, according to what the farm is focusing on, where the farm is located, how large is the farm, different tool may be useful, others may be a waste of time, others may be even harmful. But the same applies for everything.
Awesome. And I want to pick up on one of the cues that you provided, right? The how it actually differentiates across regions, across size of farms, or farmers who manage different sizes of farm holding or have different farm holding patterns. And I want to double click on that one. If we truly have to drive adoption from a grower's lens, and which is critical, because at the end of the day, we want the grower ecosystem and community to succeed, like you called out. How do you think relevance and adoption of digital technologies will differ when we are building these for large holder farmers who are a lot more mature, are probably well advanced in terms of adopting some of the basics of digitalization that's out there, like farm management software. They're already getting access to some of the intelligence solutions integrated, and they're really dabbling with it. Versus smallholder farmers in emerging markets like Asia, Africa, where the digitalization journey itself is still in its nascent stages, where they don't even know where to start. There are challenges in terms of enablement to really adopt these technologies. So, what are some of the things that we need to bring into perspective when trying to solve for these two different segments of growers?
Yeah, thank you, Sujit. It's indeed relevant to make this differentiation. Large farms, and on another side, you have a medium farm from developed countries, and then you have the smaller farmers on the other side, and they have completely different needs. They have completely different access to different technologies. Some technologies can only be used provided an existing infrastructure is there. So you need to keep into consideration all these factors. So for instance, a large farm may be in a very remote area without internet access. They can build up internet. They have the financial resources to build up a local intranet and connecting all the sensors, even in the absence of internet, and then having a hotspot somewhere that is exchanging the data with the cloud. Smallholder farmers cannot do that. So unless an existing infrastructure is present, they can benefit or not from certain technologies. So enabling factor are something relevant. And the other to consider is that the large farm is generally more open to innovation. Normally, they are more sophisticated from the economic side. And therefore, what is innovation, an innovation tool or innovation process is normally already considered, because at the end, they want to continuously increase the productivity and the profitability of the farm, and anything which is claiming to bring some increase in the productivity will be welcomed. Of course, then you have more conservative and more innovative farms, but if they want, they have the financial resources to use those, and they can start with pilots. Smaller farmers, what is a pilot for smallholder farmers? So the large farms, as far as I've seen, they are more open for these reasons. They may have the infrastructure. If they don't have, they can build up the infrastructure that can be used for several other technologies. They are used to machinery, to innovation into the machinery sector, and the machinery is incredibly sophisticated already. Several machines are a way to push digitalization because they're already equipped with digitalization on board, and therefore maybe the entry point, the icebreaker. And so there are several reasons a large farm could lead into that department. Well, medium farm and are more challenged, but may be pushed by local incentives, by local offer. You may have several startups present in countries such as US, California especially, or Netherlands, Switzerland, Israel, in several other countries that may locally push these technologies, and therefore medium farms may consider to use those just because they are at hand. They are very, very, very close by. So the smallholder farmers are a completely different category, and so far, as you said, as you mentioned, they are not really taking advantage of the opportunity of digital technology. And the limitation I mentioned are just half of the story. The other half of the story is that The majority of solution providers aren't really focusing on smallholder farmers because smallholder farmers are more challenging to be economically sustainable from the point of view of a solution provider, because there is an additional challenge. And the additional challenge is to aggregate them, because the single farmer doesn't make happy the technology provider. The technology provider has to make quite some investment in developing a technology, then testing that and marketing that. And only to recover all such investment, you need to have quite some sales. And to have some sales in the domain of smaller farmers, it means a lot of sales. So let's say that a medium farmer as a customer can be equivalent to 100 smallholder farmers. A large farm can be equivalent to 10,000 smallholder farmers. And so that is a challenge. But there are solutions. And in my opinion, given the smallholder farmers represent at the international level the largest producer in aggregate of food, we cannot neglect them. And not only, I mean, as an economic entity, of course, not at a personal level. And we cannot neglect them as an economic entity and as important for the food system. They are extremely relevant. They help the food system to be more resilient. And therefore, in my opinion, what should happen is to develop technology specifically for smallholder farmers. In an ideal world, this should be based on open source technology and further developed locally by local digital providers, local startups, local professionals that should make those solutions ideally based on why do I say based on open source? Because the underlying investment of a platform is relevant. And therefore, if you have an underlying investment which is open, where you just need to focus on the final stage, which is the fine tuning to be locally adapt, locally delivering a value and meeting the local specification, then the investment will be not so relevant. And so a return on investment from the technology provider will be easier. So I do see a future for smallholder farmer in that direction.
Very interesting thoughts. Just one point or one aspect that I want to add to that is also the lens of risk appetite that we clearly see as we go through each of these segments, right? The risk appetite to try out something new and also deal with the impact that it may have is way higher for a large smallholder farmer as compared to a small smallholder farmer. So that's another aspect and very interesting viewpoint on open sourcing the platform. And I think this is where at Cropin, we truly believe that the onus of investing and building the right digital solutions for the sector that will help maximize per acre value for every stakeholder should lie with two key players in this ecosystem. One is the governments by helping us build the right data infrastructure, because the data infrastructure is probably going to be the biggest investment that we need to make, something that is easily accessible. So it could be things like digital land records, access to climate data for the region. And so it's with a bunch of other things that we could actually include in the right data infrastructure component, and policies to be able to drive incentives and adoption for technologies, or to be able to ensure that we are able to drive more access to financial resources, especially when you talk about the medium-sized farmers and the small-sized farmers that you referred to earlier. And the other player is really agribusinesses who work with growers to produce for the food, feed, and fiber value chain that this planet needs today and for tomorrow. Marco, in your thoughts, right, what are some of the challenges and risks that these large agribusinesses need to know as they evaluate, buy or build and deploy digital technologies within their global grower ecosystems? And how can they really mitigate some of these risks?
Excellent point. Yeah, these are indeed players that are fundamental. They are the one who are dominating the current food system, and they need to make themselves several questions, in my opinion, if they want to remain to lead the food system in the next 10, 20 years, because the food system is completely changing. This is a revolution ongoing. Although it is in its infancy, it is still at its infancy. Uh, the digital tool will completely change the entire food ecosystem. So several, if not all, the agribusiness on one side, so the input provider on one side, the machinery players, and the food companies are all engaging into digitalization from different angles. Some to deliver more of their solution, some of to really make sure that the food system is more resilient on critical specific crops. What is the major challenge? The major challenge is that it is not possible that each one is continuing to build up its own specific solution close to the other. It doesn't work because the farmer at the end will be conditioned and forced to work with systems that are really not talking with each other. They will be forced, as they are now, to input their data on a separated system, and it's a nonsense. It is adding complexity to the life of the farmer, and therefore what we need is interoperability on several levels. We need to go beyond a specific ego. In my opinion, the one who will be winning are the one who will be more open and interoperable. And therefore, this seems to be a contradiction, but we have seen this already in several other sectors and several other technologies. When you open up and you adopt a standard and you are more transparent in digitalization, that pays off. So this is really a must, which is interoperability among the data which you mentioned. Another must is interoperability among the solution. So as a solution provider, you don't need just to provide a solution that is serving your existing services. If you are an agribusiness, you need to provide a holistic solution or a solution that is able to integrate with any other solution. Therefore, the farmer, in an ideal world, the farmer would just connect with one thing. And this one thing may be a composition of several things. This is the concept of the metaverse. The metaverse is trying to deliver that message, really to go beyond the specific environment of each own solution and trying to give the user the experience of navigating easily without boundaries among one solution to the other. So that was called interoperability in the past. Now it's called metaverse, even though it's not really one-to-one, but I believe it delivers the message. So I believe the short answer is every agribusiness need to reinvent its own business model, having it fully digital, having the digital as the backbone to remain in business and win market shares in the future. Number two, interoperability, and also I didn't mention data ownership and on the farmer has to be guaranteed, and the solution interoperability has to be embedded. These three variables will be a winning factor.
Plus one to that, and then I think considering the scale of the problem that we are talking about, an industry that touches over 1 billion lives who act directly or indirectly really work in this sector, the complexity of the fact that we've got smallholder farmers, which is a large percentage of the population that we need to really enable and really uplift so that they can drive more productivity out of the resources that they have. And obviously also the markets that we are talking about that we truly need to really transform. I think these are really, really huge, complex challenges. And I think hence the whole open mindset and ensuring that you think like an ecosystem player and think of solutions that you're building as ecosystem solutions that can integrate and interoperate with each other is super important and not get locked into any ecosystem. And at Cropping, we've been really focused on building solutions to solve two core gaps that we have clearly seen that plague the agriculture sector. One is the accessibility to information. There's a huge gap as far as accessibility to information is concerned, and the second one is communication gap, the ability to really let this information flow seamlessly from one stakeholder to another one who truly needs it in real time and when they really need it to solve the problems that they're trying to solve. And this could be within stakeholders, it could be within an agribusiness, for example, between various divisions. It could be between various ecosystem players, like between growers and governments or agribusinesses and consumers. And with all that we are talking about as progress that this sector has really made, I still see limited progress. All the investment and the maturing of technologies available today, some aspects that I truly believe are the reason for this tentativeness to adoption range from not looking at digital transformation projects holistically, like you called out earlier, where it is not only about bringing in new technologies, but fully enabling change and adoption at every level of the value chain and being thoughtful about this process, because we are talking about changing something that's been probably running for centuries, if not decades, and being handed over from one generation to the other. Also considering the fact that this is probably one sector where a large number of the elements that impact it are not man-made but God-made. And not just that, but also understand that digital transformation isn't a one-time exercise. It is an ongoing process, especially considering that we are still in the early stages of this transformation in this sector. Unlike some other industries like financial services or retail. Marco, from your experience and all that you've seen, and especially considering that you worked with some of these cutting-edge technologies, both outside of agriculture and then right now as you work with the agriculture ecosystem, what are some of the key technologies that can truly drive digitalization and its adoption in the sector? And how are they transforming this space? And some of the related questions, right? As it seems like myths, barriers, blockers, hey, technology is super expensive and complex. It is going to be difficult for us to deploy and adopt, which largely stems from, have you really contextualized and clearly articulated what the problem statement is? Who are the users? Have you put together a change management framework? A lot of that needs to be addressed, and not just the technology part, but can you also touch upon some of these myths of barriers and blockers that probably are holding back the adoption, and what could players in this ecosystem, especially agribusinesses, undertake to be able to address this more holistically?
Yes, thank you, Sujit. Sure. The list is really long, and of course, the agricultural sector tend to be a little conservative also. Farmers tend to be a little conservative, and therefore we need to include within the factors an aging factor. So several young potential farmers just decide not to be a farmer and go into doing other jobs because farming is less attractive. The older farmers, and there's plenty of statistics, are less familiar with the digitalization and therefore will not be really interested, maybe more interested in a new machine, but less into the digitalization. So there is a generational problem, there is some conservative problem, but all these can be overcome because at the end, a farmer is an entrepreneur. When an entrepreneur sees the potential of increasing the productivity and reducing the risk through any tool, they will use it. So the key point is really that, and you touched also another very, very important point, which is the process. And the process is much more visible in correlation with the size of a farm. The larger the farm, the more complex the process. And a farm which is just one person who has just a small farmer with his family or some few additional support has a simpler process. Therefore, talking about more complex process and talking about what are the tools which may be the icebreaker for digital agriculture, certainly ERP are among the most important tool to start with, because a farm is eventually a company. And so it has to follow all the company rules, cost, revenues, warehouse, and the counting of the human resources and all the activities, microprocess planning. So the ERP does that, is addressing these factors. And ERP is not a question mark. ERP is a no-brainer. In any other sector, ERP has been delivering value and is fully adopted. In agriculture, it took much more time for several reasons. And ERP is strictly connected with the farm process. To adopt an ERP, you need to go through several steps. The step number one is let's map the current process. Step number two, let's see if the current process is really what the company wants, because often they are just doing things as they did yesterday and the day before, but there is no time to stop and think, how could we do things better? And when you're going to adopt an ERP, then that's the time. And so you may think to reconsider the processes, and will be a very interesting exercise to write the manual. I had that in mind. It's a matter of time, but really to write the guidelines, how to do that step by step. And eventually you want to fine-tune the existing process if it's okay, or fine-tune existing process with the tool you're going to implement. And not all tools are equal. So some tool will be more flexible, other will be better for your situation, and so on and so forth. Other will be just the best one in your specific location, because you mentioned the subsidies, and several tools will embed a digital tool to make the subsidies easier or reporting easier. So those things will be certainly the entry point in digital agriculture. Also, ERP will act as hub of information. In my opinion, will be the central data collector of all the other. And therefore, the other digital agriculture solution, maybe smart watering, maybe it may be fertilization optimization, agronomic recommendation for pests and diseases, and harvesting support, robotic. All these could ideally integrate with the ERP, and the ERP could be the gateway that is then providing the data to the government and the other external entities, which may be also a provider of inputs and or the buyer of the food. In my opinion, this is the best way to organize the system. Did I address your question, Sujit?
You did, Marco. In fact, I'll double click or pick up some of the points you mentioned. So the first one was on the fact that mapping out your current processes and then analyzing if these are exactly the processes that the business truly wants to take forward before you start applying it or trying to solve it using the digital tools that you probably are shortlisting. We have typically seen that this is generally the gap, and a lot of our customers try and retrofit their existing processes into the tech, whereas the technology can actually enable this process to be a lot more efficient, and both in terms of turnaround times, even in terms of the effort that is required to be able to get some of the things done. But you know what, they don't want to make that change because that then involves change management on the ground. So a lot of the times then goes into a process of, hey, you know what, let's bring in multiple point solutions. And that creates what we have seen as a technology sprawl in this sector, especially within agribusinesses. A ton of point solutions built in to match what the existing processes are, not trying to see if there's a better way to simplify and make some of these processes more efficient. So there is generally a gap of what I call as business analysts who can articulate and interpret both sides of this language or this Skype. And we realize that this space doesn't really need more point solutions. What it needs is really an ecosystem platform that can help and integrate and enable all stakeholders, empower them by democratizing access to data and intelligence at scale. And that really got us started on our journey with Cropping Cloud that we launched early last year. And this is the first industry cloud platform that is purpose-built to solve for agriculture. We still have a long way to go, and we are feverishly working with all our customers across the globe to integrate, enable, iterate, and learn and make adoption of all that technology has to offer easier, economically feasible, and most importantly, accessible to all. Now, Marco, I know that you, like I said, you always are working with cutting edge technologies. What is your view? What do you see as the future of digital agriculture, and what steps can we take to ensure that it continues to be the transformative force for good in this sector?
Yeah, you mentioned some, Sujit, some key. I do agree with you that you have a constellation of several independent solutions that are constantly coming to the market with different level of maturity, but you have already quite a significant number of available solutions that have been proven to deliver value. And therefore, while we need more improvement of each single solution being ROI oriented, so return on investment oriented, each one should prove that the farmer would return its own investment from year 1, 2, or 3 if it's a 10-year solution. Yes, we'll need to have these, at this point, we need to start thinking and acting to glue all these together, to allow the creation of an ecosystem that makes the life easier to the farmer. For instance, let's imagine a sort of iTunes or Android. So when you have this platform, you have a single smartphone in your hand, and then you can download easily new apps, and then you can log in through Google and the new apps, or through iTunes in the new app. And so your effort to register and all this stuff, it's 1 second, it's 1 click. And then you start using that. And that is the experience a farmer needs. I'm not just making an example, of course. And that, and of course, then it's much more complex because you need to have the data transmitted to the government and so in the entire food system. So how do I see that? I see developing in this way. I see a sort of 1 or 2 or 3, ideally, possible data highway that will guarantee interoperability. Some of them may be open, some other may be proprietary. And this would allow the data transfer among different specific solution provider. Having a single cloud, like you mentioned, when everyone can easily switch from an application to another is something absolutely needed, specifically for agriculture. And I see that the digitalization would really move the focus from the specific farm to the entire food system. It has to be fully integrated, because at the end, the farm is the key element, because it's there that food is produced. Then the other key element is the consumer. So we want these to easily be connected And therefore, the interoperability, the data highway that may be using blockchain and other technologies would really need to have this fully transparent while guaranteed the data ownership and the privacy, and having a constellation of solutions that work in concert into this large highway. And the one who's the players would with develop this data highway will have the largest chance to win the race.
Yeah, plus one to that, Marco. And with that, we come towards the end of this episode and kind of just summarizing some of the barriers, blocks, slash myths that we addressed. Right, we started off with just try to simplify or differentiate between what is digitization versus digitalization. We spoke about keeping the grower at the core. The difference between how digital solutions can solve and can be accessible or can be used by large-holder farmers to medium-sized farmers to smallholder farmers, and how why that is critical and it's important as you build solutions for each of these farmer segments and not think of painting all three of them with one single paintbrush, thinking that it's similar problems that they're solving. That is going to be critical. So adaptability of the solutions for all these kind of farmer segments is critical. We touched upon the need for having an open ecosystem mindset, both in terms of how you build solutions or how you buy and integrate solutions, where interoperability is going to be super critical, and not think of it as locked in systems. Again, thinking of the grower at the end of the day, we connected point that we discussed is around the data ownership and the value that we can deliver back to the growers, and ensuring that the concepts of expensive investments to be made in technology or digital transformation has to be in context of what's the kind of total cost of ownership that you are able to build out for the business or your entire ecosystem, as well as the ROI that you can drive, both for your business as well as for the growers who engage with you. And at the end of the day, as you look into the future, clearly look at this as an ongoing process that we all are just getting started on. And hence, you will need to map out all that you currently have as part of your business processes, both at a business level, at the field level, what you do with the ecosystem, including growers. See how you can rebuild those to be a lot more efficient and effective as you start adopting digital tools and technologies to be able to make it more efficient. At the end of the day, we are definitely dealing with limited resources on this planet, be it water, be it the cultivable land area that we have, as well as the grower population that is constantly under pressure to look at other sources of sustainable livelihoods than farming. And we want to ensure that we build a much more sustainable livelihood future for them. And for that, we will have to build this to be a much more efficient ecosystem. And all of these aspects are going to matter. And this probably also sets stage for our next episode, where we will actually have a practitioner from an agribusiness share with us their experience in driving digital transformation within their business. With that, thank you again for joining us on this particular episode. And thank you, Marco, for sharing all your insights. I loved some of the ground truth realities that you brought up in our discussion today. And I'm sure the audience will wait to have you join us in the next episode along with a practitioner too.
Thank you, Sushit. My pleasure.